I want to take you back, far beyond the world of cities, lights, and machines. Back to a time when the night itself ruled the earth. There were no houses, no lamps, no warmth beyond the human body. When the sun fell behind the horizon, the world turned into a vast, black ocean of fear and uncertainty. Predators hunted in silence. The air grew cold and merciless. For early humans, our ancient ancestors, darkness wasn't just the absence of light, it was the presence of danger. But even then, nature held a secret, a power so wild, so alive, that it could both destroy and protect. And that power was fire. The first humans didn't invent fire, they found it, in the chaos of the natural world. Lightning would strike a tree and set it ablaze. Volcanoes would vomit rivers of molten rock, and dry savannas would burst into flames after a long drought. To most creatures, fire was a terror, something to run from. But to a few curious eyes, perhaps hiding behind a boulder or the roots of a tree, it was something different. A strange, glowing magic that danced in the air, that turned darkness into light and cold into warmth. Imagine what it must have been like to see that for the first time, to watch the forest burn, and instead of fleeing, to wonder. Archaeologists believe this moment, that spark of curiosity, may have been one of the earliest signs of the human mind awakening. At sites like Kubifora in Kenya and Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, scientists have found traces of ancient fire dating back over 1.5 million years. Charred bones, burned stones, ash layers buried deep beneath the earth. They tell us something powerful, that even before humans learned to control fire, they were watching it, perhaps even trying to keep it alive. Imagine an ancient Homo erectus, skin weathered, eyes reflecting the flicker of a dying ember, holding a smoldering branch, carefully carrying it from one place to another. They didn't know chemistry or oxygen or combustion, but they knew warmth. They knew safety from the cold. And somewhere, deep inside, they must have sensed that this glowing phenomenon was not just a force of nature, but a key. Fire changed how our ancestors looked at the world. Before fire, the night belonged to other creatures. But with fire, humanity claimed the darkness. The flame offered more than light. It offered time. Now they could gather after sunset, share food, protect each other, and perhaps, for the first time in history, share stories. Anthropologists believe that the control of fire didn't just change what humans could do, it changed who we were. Because when we stared into that first flame, we were also looking at something symbolic, our reflection as creators. Still, mastering fire was no easy task. Natural fire burns out quickly. Rain can kill it. Wind can scatter it. Keeping a flame alive was an art, a daily battle against nature itself. Some early humans likely carried embers wrapped in leaves or animal skin, moving from one campsite to another. In the archaeological record, sites like Wonderwork Cave in South Africa show clear layers of burnt bone and plant ash. The first real signs that humans were not only using fire, but managing it inside shelter. That evidence dates back almost 1 million years. It's hard to imagine the courage it took to stay near fire at first. The heat, the smoke, the unpredictability. And yet they stayed. They learned. Because something inside the human spirit recognized fire not as a destroyer, but as a teacher. Every species that came before us had to adapt to nature. But humans, we adapted nature itself. That moment when one of our ancestors first reached out and dared to hold the burning branch instead of running away, that was the beginning of everything. Our journey from prey to predator, from wanderers to thinkers, from survival to civilization. And it all began with a flicker in the dark. In that faint orange glow, we found warmth, safety, and a new kind of connection, not just to each other, but to the universe itself. The stars above, the flame before us, both made of the same cosmic fire. And somewhere deep in that connection, we began to wonder, what else could we control? What else could we create? The story of humanity didn't start with words or tools, it started with a spark. And that spark was the birth of human imagination. I want to take you back again, to that first flickering light deep inside a cave, The air smells of smoke and earth. The flames twist and whisper, and for the first time in the history of our species, we are no longer just witnesses of fire. We are its guardians. That moment, when humanity learned to keep the flame alive, was one of the most defining turning points in our evolutionary story. Because it wasn't simply about survival anymore. It was about control. Archaeologists tell us that this mastery didn't happen overnight. It likely took hundreds of thousands of years, a slow dance between curiosity, trial, and error. At first, early humans, perhaps Homo erectus, didn't yet know how to create fire from scratch. Instead, they borrowed it from nature, a wildfire here, a burning branch there, and learned how to nurture that fragile spark. At sites like Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, and Zhoukoudian near modern-day Beijing, scientists have found the blackened remains of hearths, ashes, charred bones, and burned stones, all dating back nearly 1 million years. Those layers of soot tell a story more powerful than words. They tell us that someone, long ago, sat beside that fire and chose not to let it die. Imagine that responsibility, to feed the flame through wind and rain, to protect it from the night, to pass it from one generation to the next. For our ancestors, the fire was life itself. But then, something extraordinary happened. Somewhere, somehow, humans learned to create fire on their own. Archaeological evidence suggests that by around 400,000 years ago, early humans were striking stones together, using flint and pyrite to create sparks. Others may have used friction, rubbing dry sticks or bamboo until the heat ignited tiny embers. That was the true moment we tamed the flame. Because for the first time, fire no longer depended on nature. It depended on us. And when that happened, the world opened up in ways never seen before. The night was no longer feared, it was conquered. Fire gave humans something far more valuable than warmth or light. It gave us time. Now, after sunset, our ancestors could gather around a hearth. They could plan, they could teach, they could dream. Anthropologists believe that language itself may have evolved around the fire. Because when you sit in that circle of light, with shadows flickering on cave walls, you begin to tell stories. You begin to pass down knowledge. And that knowledge builds culture. But the most dramatic transformation fire brought was inside our very bodies. The ability to cook food changed human evolution forever. Before fire, our ancestors spent hours chewing raw plants and tough meat. Cooking broke down fibers, released more energy, and made nutrients easier to digest. That extra energy fueled the growth of our most powerful tool, the human brain. Scientists like Richard Wrangham call this the cooking hypothesis. The idea that fire-fed diets helped turn early humans into the thinking, planning beings we are today. Cooking also meant safety, food free of parasites, warmth through harsh winters, and gatherings that strengthened social bonds. So from fire came not only nourishment, but community. Picture it, the rhythmic sound of sticks breaking, the glow reflecting off stone walls, the smell of roasting meat in the air. For the first time, humans weren't just surviving, they were living. And with that came imagination. They began to paint on cave walls to create pigments using ash and clay. The firelight gave birth to art. Every spark that danced on those walls was like a moving story, the first cinema of humankind. Yet even in mastery, fire demanded respect. Too much heat could destroy, a careless spark could consume, and so humanity learned balance, how to use power without losing control. That lesson would echo through time, because the story of fire is the story of every tool we've ever made, from the stone axe, to the wheel, to the engine in the screen you're watching this on. Each one carries the same question. Can we control the power we create? Fire taught us something no other element could, that knowledge comes with responsibility. It taught us patience, precision, and foresight. It burned away fear and replaced it with curiosity. By the time of Homo sapiens, our ancestors were using fire not just for food or warmth, but for exploration. Firelight guided migrations through cold landscapes, helped ward off predators, and shaped the rhythm of early human life. It's believed that without fire, humans could never have spread across the world. It was our passport through ice and darkness, our constant companion in the unknown. When I think about that first person who struck two stones together and saw a spark catch, I imagine a mix of fear and awe. Because in that moment, they didn't just create a flame, they changed what it meant to be human. Fire became more than a tool. It became a symbol of knowledge, warmth, power, and creation. And from that point forward, it would live inside us, not just as light, but as a reflection of the human spirit itself. We had learned to tame the flame, and with that, we took the first true step toward civilization. But the story of fire doesn't end there. Because once humanity mastered the flame, we learned to use it for something far greater, to build, to forge, and to transform the world around us. In the next, I'll explore how fire became the tool that built everything we now call civilization, from metal to myth, from temples to technology. Because every invention, every discovery, every dream that shaped our future was born from that first spark. I want to take you back once more, to a time when the world began to change forever. The flames that once burned in dark caves had now become part of daily life. No longer a mystery, no longer feared. Fire had become our most trusted ally. But as humanity evolved, so did our use of that power. Because fire wasn't just a light in the night anymore. It was the force that built civilization itself. For thousands of years, humans used fire to cook, to stay warm, and to protect themselves. But around 10,000 years ago, a new age began, the Neolithic Revolution. This was when humans settled down, built villages, and learned to cultivate the land. And at the heart of every settlement, there was always a hearth, a single flame burning as a symbol of life, family, and community. The fire pit was no longer just a survival tool. It was a center of identity. As agriculture spread across the ancient world, fire became our first tool of transformation. We used it to clear forests, to bake clay into pottery, to harden tools, and eventually, to melt stone into metal. That moment, when humans first discovered that fire could transform raw rock into glowing, molten metal, was another leap equal to the first spark. We don't know exactly when the first metal was smelted, but evidence suggests that by 5000 BCE, people in the Middle East were already working with copper. Soon came bronze, then iron, and with them, the rise of tools, weapons, and empires. Every hammer strike, every forged fire, was a new expression of human creativity. It's poetic, really. The same element that once gave us warmth and light now gave us the means to build and conquer. Fire had become both our greatest ally and our most dangerous weapon, because with creation came destruction. The flames that forged swords also burned cities. The power that built civilizations could just as easily reduce them to ash. From the torches of ancient armies to the burning of ships and temples, fire became a symbol of both triumph and tragedy. But in every culture, it held something sacred. To the Greeks, it was the divine gift stolen by Prometheus, a symbol of knowledge and defiance. To the Hindus, fire was Agni, the messenger between mortals and gods. In countless mythologies, fire was seen as the bridge between the physical and the spiritual. It wasn't just an element, it was the essence of transformation, the very thing that turned matter into meaning. As centuries passed, humans learned to push that power even further. The Industrial Revolution turned fire into machinery. Coal-fed engines powered trains, ships, and factories. 1,000,000 tiny hearths burning together to reshape the world. We discovered how to harness fire not just from wood or stone, but from the very heart of matter. Chemical reactions, steam, electricity, and eventually nuclear energy. That primal flame had evolved into science itself. Yet its core remained the same, the desire to understand, to create, to transform. When you think about it, every invention we've made since that first ember is a different kind of fire. The light of a bulb, the heat of an engine, the spark of a computer chip, all of them are children of that original flame. But like our ancestors, we still face the same question. Can we control what we create? Today, our fires burn hotter than ever. In engines, in reactors, in the heart of technology. We've mastered combustion and energy beyond what our ancestors could imagine. Yet the lesson remains unchanged. With great power comes great responsibility. In a way, fire never really left our hands. It lives in every sunrise that powers our solar panels, every rocket that breaks through the atmosphere, every idea that lights up in the human mind. Fire is no longer just outside us, it's within us. It's the spark of curiosity that pushes a child to ask why. It's the heat of passion that drives an inventor to keep trying. It's the light of discovery that still burns, generation after generation. When I think about that first ancestor, the one who dared to reach into the flames instead of running from them, I realize that what they really ignited wasn't just fire. It was the beginning of our shared human journey, a journey defined by curiosity, courage, and creation. We lit a flame that still burns today. And maybe that's what being human really means, to look into the darkness, to find light, and to never stop creating. If you've enjoyed this journey through time, from the first spark to the birth of civilization, subscribe to Genesis of Genius for more stories of how simple ideas change the world. Because every great discovery, every invention, and every leap of human progress began the same way, with a single spark.